Hello and welcome to the By Intent channel with me, Rakinatha. As always, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the By Intent channel and podcast Nahid de Belgeonne. Nahid is a leading yoga expert and teacher in the UK. She is the founder of the Human Method, which is a specialized form of yoga and movement, and it's what we're going to learn all about today. Nahid is also in her final year of four-year training in the Feldenkrais Method, which is a learning method that focuses on the sensory awareness of movement. And Nahid has been a yoga expert for Aveda UK, Women's Health UK. Her corporate clients include Estee, Lauder, just to name a few. So Nahid, it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the By Intent channel today. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Aki. Thanks so much for having me.
Nahid, jumping kind of straight into it, I think you've got such a beautiful story, your journey as well. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and your story, a little bit about yourself and how you got to the yoga mat?
So it's a long old story, but I shall try and be brief. I think I got into yoga like everybody. I was stressed. I kind of didn't really know what else. I tried everything else to try and mitigate my emotions and my kind of emotional life. And the world is quite challenging sometimes, especially now. And everyone had always told me that yoga was going to, could help me not be quite so stressed. Quite a lot of people told me it would help to de-stress me. So I must have been quite a stressy sort of person. And it took me a really, really long time to find the right teacher. I must be honest. I didn't really think this was for me at all. I've always kept fit. So from a very young age, I understood that movement helped me to manage my emotional life and my emotions in some way. So when I was very young, I started running, and I didn't come from, a very fit family or an outdoorsy type family at all. And this was way before, being fit was fashionable. And I realized that, I started running when I first wanted to, I had this inkling to leave home, and I kind of started running because things just got on top of me at home. And then I started kickboxing when I wanted to leave my first husband. And then I started yoga when I left a very, very well paid job. Without any plans at all, just because I couldn't cope with it. It was too stressful. And I always thought I was quite good at managing stress. And I didn't really think yoga was for me. The kind of people it attracted, the sort of, the atmosphere of the studios, I felt really excluded from it, I have to say. And I'm quite a bold woman and I like to take my space, but I feel quite intimidated actually going along to those studios. And I've had a whole succession of just very funny things happen to me and humiliating things happen to me in studio as well. But luckily, I've got such a good sense of humor. I kind of really didn't let it put me off. I mean, I had one man tell me to relax my vagina in horse pose. I mean, in a really packed
Oh
class.
my
I mean,
word.
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, now Me Too's here and everyone understands that you can't really be treated like that in class. We have, we wouldn't put up with it. But then it was kind of like, whoa. I mean, I walked out, but still, I just found it very exclusive. Very exclusive. I found it really, I found it a bit unkind, actually. I found the teachers quite harsh. And so I think all of that has changed now. It took me a long time to find very, very good teachers. At the beginning, because I was, a bit of a speed queen, I was attracted to male teachers, and I was attracted to, the usual Ashtanga, and then Bikram, hard stuff. And then over time, I was just very, very drawn towards, female teachers who were just kind and nurturing and respectful and just delightful, just kind, really compassionate. And that is where I feel found my mojo. And all of my teachers actually have that, their common thread is that they're very kind. Lots of them are in their 70s actually, because they've had they've lived a life and they've had really good experience. And for me, I feel they've got something really interesting to impart. And I also found that lots of my teachers were influenced by Feldenkrais and Somatics, which leads me neatly into what that is. So I suppose I found lots of studio yoga, and I've owned studios, so I've had yoga studios in central London for 13 years. But it was also coupled with fitness, because I'm a real believer that for your hard stuff, you go and box, you go and run, you pick some weights up. And for me, your yoga practice is about recalibrating, it's about refuge, it's about restoring, so that you have equal parts action and equal parts restoration. Without those two things, I think you burn out. I think you just end up, hitting a wall and getting into real emotional problems, physical problems, because it's too hard. That's not how we're made. You don't want to be, pushing yourself through your issues, pushing yourself through tiredness, pushing yourself through sleep, and so on. And of course, that sort of hard practice ignores all of the changes that you have throughout your life, especially women. We are very hormonal driven. And if you don't listen to that or tend to it, I think you are in a place where you're constantly fighting yourself. So somatics and Feldenkrais. So somatics is the umbrella term, I guess, and it means moving more from your internal body. So it's about internal body awareness. And Feldenkrais is one method under the umbrella. You might have heard of Alexandra technique. It's very, very popular amongst actors. You might have heard of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who does the body mind centering. That's very big in the US. She's American. And so there's something much softer about it. It's about listening in. It's about moving more to your natural rhythms. And it's about Feldenkrais in particular is a neuromuscular method. So it reboots your muscle to brain, brain to muscle communication. And what that does, the effects of that are, I mean, it's amazing, really. It pulls you out of your habits. So I think we, without thinking about it, we suddenly realize that actually, we might be doing this because we're over our devices, and that's kind of hard to fix unless you pay attention to it. So it pulls you out of your habitual posture, and it gives you a whole heap of new possibilities. And the idea behind it is that you don't have to be senile. You don't have to age in a really bad way, in a really poorly way. You can actually be great no matter what age you are and be functioning to your optimal. So it's quite a powerful technique, or a powerful method. And I sort of incorporate all of that and weave it all into my teaching.
That sounds amazing. I think so many women can probably resonate with your journey as well. I've had some experiences, just feeling, especially when you're beginning, to
Yes.
walk into a class and not be at the same level, and sadly also by other participants who just kind of don't want to make space for somebody who is new and learning. And it takes a really long time to find incredible teachers. So to hear that from somebody like you is also just, it's comforting. So I do appreciate that. And I think it's something so many women will resonate with. And yeah, I mean, Feldenkrais sounds amazing. I heard about it from a friend of mine. She was experiencing something called cold shoulder.
Yes.
And, she found it as a method to kind of overcome that, and spoke about dealing with it from a chronic pain perspective. And I kind of love that, body-brain connection. What exactly is somatic yoga though? And how is, what is the human method that you've developed? What is that about? Is it this combination? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so let me start with what the human method is, because really it's a culmination of 13 years of teaching people and myself, teaching myself different methods. And I found in my yoga studios, fitness studios, that people would come along and you'd sort of capture them for about 20 minutes of the class, because they would start really jittered because their nervous systems were so jangled. You might maybe get them into the breath, but really their minds were elsewhere. And by about, I don't know, 2/3 into the class, you'd finally be like, yes, you're here, you're really present. And then boom, the class would end and off they'd go, and they'd be like really jangly again. And I kind of thought that wasn't really good enough. I kind of thought, well, actually, we need to look at the root of your nervous system disorder. I kind of feel that most of us have got nervous system disorders because life is tough and we're not very kind to ourselves. And it's as simple as that. Our culture is, and both of our cultures are, England as well as the US, is that you push yourself and then you only go and seek help when you've hit a wall. So traditionally, Feldenkrais has been heard of if you have pain or if you have, some sort of chronic issue. And I think that's such a shame that you wait until you've hit a wall, until you find a better way to be. So the human method, for me, is a culmination of lots of different things, practices that I have tried over the years to bring myself to a state of balance. I'm a Londoner. I was born and brought up here, and I have a Londoner's attitude. So that, when I was younger, people would bump into you and you sort of kiss your teeth at them and pretend that you were a little bit stronger and harder than you really are, because it's a city and you need to act tougher, right? And myself, I actually did hit a wall. I had appendicitis. I almost died. It went gangrenous. And because, me being me, a bit of a tough cookie, I was like, oh, I don't need any help. I'm fine. I'll breathe my way through this. Didn't know it was appendicitis. Waited a little bit too long to go into hospital. Anyway, cut a long story short, I was in bed for about 3 months. I couldn't get up. I'd wasted away. I had no middle kind of strength, body strength at all. And the only things that got me back into my life and were able to, get me to stand on my own 2 feet was breathing. So breathing exercises. Then I went into yoga nidra because I was in hospital and I was on opium for the pain. And then I was just chucked straight at home with no help at all, off the opium. So I'd had a whole week of solid opium. And then suddenly I was getting withdrawal symptoms. I didn't know what it was. The biggest, blackest depression you ever did. And I'm not a depressed person at all. But I sunk really, really deeply. So it was the breathing that helped me out of it. It was yoga nidra, which is a guided meditation. I listened to tapes of it. Then it was gentle restorative yoga because I couldn't really stand and I didn't have any body strength. And so just lying in poses on support would then start to open up areas of my body so I could breathe more fully. And then from that, I went into very slow flows just to help me build some strength, and so on and so on. And then I heard about somatics, got into that. I trained in somatics, and now I'm heavily into my Feldenkrais training. And that is amazing because it completely changes how you move. So rather than being concerned about what you do, it's about how you do what you do. And when you are engaged with that, it involves your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and your senses, as well as movement. So it's all of you. So it's incredibly engrossing without you having to sit there forcing yourself to meditate or something. It just comes very, very easily because it's so engrossing. And so I got into that. I'm 53 now, and I can do all sorts of incredible things. I've got great mobility. I have no pain. I have no chronic pain. I'm very grounded. I mean, we've all been through this awful, global pandemic and all the unrests that have happened. And I've stayed pretty grounded throughout it. Of course, I feel the world's pain, but I've managed to just keep putting everything into perspective. I've been managing to live a much simpler life. And also, putting things in plan for a future life. I want to be different. I want to use this to be different in some way. And I think the human method really helps you to navigate change in your life, and it really helps you to become adaptable. So it uses a whole heap of contemplative practices to allow you to be really grounded in the present moment. And studies have shown again and again that when you're fully engaged in what you do, your levels of contentment rise. And where we've all had the rug pulled from under us, where we thought we were this, and we had a career, and we had this something, and then suddenly everything's shifted again. It's really important just to quickly find your equilibrium, and the human method helps you do this. So it can be whatever you want, really. You can either use the breath aspect of it. You can, there's classes that just deal with somatics. There's classes that just deal with restoration. And then there's classes that deal with strength building, because, you kind of need all of those things.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. I can't think of a better time when I think we all need that right now. So many people are in transition right now. And I think we need that equilibrium. So I really, really love that and appreciate that. A statement that I read on your website or somewhere along the lines, maybe it was an article, that was really profound. And it spoke about becoming human again.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask you that question and say, what does that statement mean to you? And how should we perceive it as well? How should the average person understand this really profound and beautiful statement to become human again?
Well, Raki, I think what's really important about what's happening in the world right now is we know this is not being human, right? Yeah, this isn't how we treat each other. No, that can't. It can no longer go on. And every time I think about it, I'm sure for the same as you and all of your listeners, I feel really sad. I feel really sad we've allowed this to happen. Actually, I feel really sad that we've ignored it for so long, and it took yet another televised death of somebody where we just thought, hang on a minute, and of course it's not a black issue, it is a human issue. We cannot let human beings be treated in this way. So I know what it isn't to be, what it is not to be human, and that is to be tired all the time where you're drinking gallons of coffee to keep you up. It's to not be able to afford medical assistance in your country. I mean, that is inhumane. It's to worry about how you're putting food on the table for your family. It's to have no hope and no chances. So what I'm hoping will come out of this situation is that we're not going to go back to that. This is our chance. It is our chance to take care of ourselves much better, because when we do that, we have the generosity to then look after other people. Because all this hate comes from poverty, lack of chance, lack of opportunity. That's where it's coming from. So actually, we kind of know what it is to not be human. So for me, self-care is your number one kind of armory. It's your number one thing that we all must do. And for me, that is breathing, it's sleeping well, it's eating well, and it's having all of those opportunities to do that. And then once you have that, God, you're in a place where you can thrive. Don't we all want to thrive? What makes you happy? What makes me happy is not just the good things that happen to me, but good things that happen to my friends, to my family, to my neighbors. And what makes me sad is when I see everyone suffering around me. And if one of the tenets of wellness is that we really don't want to see other humans and other beings suffering, then we have to engage in self-care. But more importantly, once we're there, we have to take it out into the world. And I think for me, the wellness industry forgot about that. They were so interested in commodifying, and making lots of money, that they forgot that thing about taking it out into the world, off the mat and into the world. And this is a reminder, this is our chance, really. You can't rake the planet for money in this way, because it will collapse and it will implode, and we will go with it, as you're seeing in your bushfires in your country, and we're seeing the same here. I mean, it's unusually warm weather. This isn't usual for September, for fall. And so for me, actually, it's I know, often in the wellness industry that people want to separate politics from wellness, and you can't. It's all, you vote on it, you vote on healthcare, you vote on how people are treated, so you can't separate these two things. So for me, what it means to be human is to care for yourself and then care for others. That for me is a life well lived, right? What do you think?
I love that. It's kind of, leading me to kind of two questions, or prompting two other really big questions. And, as you're speaking about that, also realizing, and I know yoga has become really popular with younger kids, yoga for kids, but realizing that, do you think with yoga and meditation in schools, it will also change how we are raised, how we value self, how we exist in the world? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I mean, God, I wish I had been introduced to all of this when I was younger. And actually, some of the things that I've learned are so easy. You just think, why did I not know about this? Why did I not know about this in school? Like, how awesome and powerful would we all be if we were able to self-regulate our emotions? How awesome and powerful would we be if we understood that actually there's a optimal pace of breath that will immediately bring your nervous system into balance. We should know about this, and so good. I'm so happy that schools are introducing this. I think it's a really great thing. But my kind of message really is, and then take it off the mat, and then take it into the world, because it's no good that a privileged few are getting this at school. You know, what's the point of that? Because, you know, they live in the real world too. They're going to have to encounter all the things that are going wrong at some point. So we might as well have it for all. The more self-sufficient you can make people in their own wellness, you know, the better world it's going to be for everyone.
I love that. I love that. And that was kind of the second question is I am certainly sensing a lot of people I've spoken to, friends, um, this kind of revolution in wellness, which has been coming for the last few years, thanks to kind of, the work you're doing and people like yourself in kind of changing what we think wellness means, and separating it from this, really this vision of, okay, it's about how we look,
Yeah.
and competing really on those externalities, but rather about coming back into our bodies and that sort of presence in our bodies. And, I haven't had a year where I have spoken to people, experienced people coming to things like yoga and meditation with a true understanding of, oh, I get it now. I see it now. I understand now. I see why I need this. And it, kind of got me excited because I keep thinking, exactly like you mentioned, maybe we are on that precipice. Maybe coming out of this, there can be that change. Have you noticed anything like that? What are your thoughts on where we are, and are we at this kind of precipice of a wellness revolution?
I think we are, for several reasons. One is we can't go on like this. And that being at home has made people go internally because, again, they've either lost their jobs or they've been furloughed. Did you have that in your country where the
Oh,
government
yeah.
paid your wages? Yeah, for a bit. So, or they were furloughed without understanding, were they going to be made redundant? What's going to happen in the future? And then, just as you said, you send yourself a bit crazy about worrying about the future when you can't really do anything about it. So I found that because people are at home and they're working from home or they're having to stay indoors, they had a total shift in their perception of wellness and health and what it means to them. And mental health came up big time for them because up until that point they ran or they did something. And there was a moment where, our parks were locked and closed because they just thought everyone just wasn't really allowed out. And we weren't, we have a much more indoors culture here because of the weather. And so we were allowed out, I think, for one walk. It's so funny because, of course, we were all slightly breaking it, especially if you had a dog. You were like, oh, I hope no one's seen you, but I'm going to go out again. Because actually, I think everyone realised that mental health is so important. And perhaps they hadn't thought about that before in quite the same way. Perhaps they hadn't made the link between movement and your emotional health. So for me, what it's done, so I went online immediately. I mean, I lost my income in 24 hours. And I was just like, wow, what am I going to do? And when you teach, that is your identity. I help people. So I have paid for classes, and then I was doing free classes for the NHS, which is our National Health Service. And that gave me my identity back, being able to be of service. And then I had paid for classes that gave me money. And so that was really wonderful. And what I noticed was because people were at home, they were much better placed to try slower, smaller movements. So Feldenkrais and Somatics is much slower. If I had to go and start this class, the Human Method, in a studio, in fact, I did at a studio nearby, and because they're quite a big and busy, studio, they were, it was fine. However, I know that in my studios, which thank heavens I sold last year, but in my studios, if I had started this class, it would have taken a really long time because people are like, nah, I don't want to go that slow, or I don't want to feel, because feeling's painful, right? It's painful to feel. It's better to kind of, drink or go out lots and chase experiences to not actually sit and think about things. So because people were suddenly faced with humanity, they realized how awful it was, and they need some sort of coping mechanisms. And so people were very, very in the right mindset because they were fearful, they were anxious, they were depressed, they were they had insomnia. They were right in the right place to try something new and to go in a little bit. And so I think that is going to be really powerful moving forwards, because now they understand that they can affect change by what they do, and they can affect their attitude to life by what they do, by these contemplative practices. And that takes a long time to come to that realization when you're in our really busy world, because there's so much to distract you. The thing that, you know, that we are under, what's really under attack right now is our attention. Yeah. And these practices help you to rein it in. Because if your attention is all over the place, you're going to be frazzled. I mean, often lots of my clients, you know, before this whole thing, they were completely brain tired, but not physically muscle tired. So you'd go to bed slightly, you know, jerking and shaking because your brain was just exhausted because you're taking so much information in, but you hadn't moved really. And you kind of, you need to move to dissipate that energy. So I think, you know, awful way to realize it, but I think out of this comes something good. Out of this, what is going to happen is that people realize that things could be different. Life could be a little bit different from, you know, what they've had. I don't know about you, but lots of us here, we don't want to go back to work. You know, the government is telling us to go back to work. Nobody wants to do it. They're like, why? I'm perfectly productive at home. Plus, I get to see my partner. I get to see my children. I get to clock off at a certain time. We can all go to the park together. What, do you know what I mean? It's like they are returning to their human spirit again.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I've been really fortunate that I've, you know, been working virtually the last few years, but my husband kind of goes in one week and he's at home one week, and it's been
Nice.
wonderful.
Lovely.
It's
Yeah.
really been wonderful, you know, just to have him here for that additional week. You win something back, right?
You
You
do
win
win something back. And also you realize that, you know, I think, I'm hoping this is the end of a career at the cost of your health. I'm hoping there's a different attitude, because that helps no one. And, you know, I teach a lot of people who are in their 70s and their 80s, because my method, in, you know, helps you to get your mobility back and helps you to build strength. And I have a few clients with Parkinson's. Lots of my clients are very, very successful CEOs, and they have literally given their whole lives into making their money. And now they're desperately trying to regain their health, because now they've got all the money that they want in the world, and they want to spend their time with their grandchildren, and they find they can't bend very well, or they're losing their balance. And so, you know what, I'm really hoping it will be an end to that kind of alpha macho kind of culture of where you just have to work at the cost of your health, because I think you can have both. I think that you can have a much kinder, much more compassionate working environment. Because, you know, if I'm teaching those people and they're having their realizations, and guess what, they have teams of people. So, you know, I'm kind of tapping into their human heart, and I'm sure they will then go on to affect that change in their workplaces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think, you know, every sort of generation or every era, we look back at previous eras and be like, "Oh, how do they live like that?" And you always kind of remind yourself and say, people are going to look back at us and be like, how did we live like this? You know, we didn't have to work like this. We didn't.
I'm hoping so. But I'm hoping we will look back and say, wow, that was such an long time. And what's so interesting actually about the information age is we've taken this 8-hour working for 8 hours every single. That came from production. It came from manufacturing. And we applied that model to the information age, which actually makes no sense whatsoever, because your brain cannot focus for 8 hours non-stop. You know, how we work is that we focus for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then we need to kind of relinquish that focus and do something mindless, and or move about a bit. And then we can, you know, we're really good at working in bursts of time and then releasing that activity in some way. So, you know, for me, working at home is great, because I literally will teach people for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then I'll roll around on the ground, or I'll go for a little walk in the park, and then I'll come back and I'm rejuvenated to teach somebody, you know, for the next 2 hours. And that's actually what we all need to do. You know, so I often kind of advise people who have reached burnout to start working like that, especially now they have the opportunity to do that from home, of where you set a timer, or you have one task in particular, and then once that's done, after 2 hours maximum, you then take a rest, and you go for a walk, and you just kind of refresh yourself, rejuvenate yourself, and then you come back for your next task. And it's making people a lot more productive. So yeah, I'm hoping all of that will change, and we have a whole reboot on how we're going to be.
I love that guidance. It's something I've kind of naturally been trying to do as well. And,
Right.
I haven't even thought about it until you sort of spoke about it. And I was like, oh, of course, but I've just been going with where my body wants to go. It's like, okay, I'm okay to be down here for 2 hours, but then I want to go make a call. I want to go, make a cup of something and just listening more to, which, again, depending on the work you do, you can or you can't afford. But yeah, I think that's really, really great guidance.
I've got some really good hacks if you work somewhere where you can't, just roll around on the floor like you can, which is just introduce those mid-morning and mid-afternoon tea times, tea pauses. So just get up and go off, because then that roughly works with start time, 2 hours of work, and then go and tell everyone that you'll do the coffee round or the tea round, and you can get up and do that. Or what you can do is take a notepad and a pen to a room and then just have a little snooze or a daydream out of the window.
I love that. That's how it should be.
How it
I
should
love
be.
that.
I think we just have to reclaim ourselves back. We've got to do that, um, because that's actually how we're much more productive.
What are the underlying issues? What are the underlying stresses? Almost even cultural stresses. We've recognized our work culture as one of them. Is there anything else in our environment that you're seeing that is stressing us out?
I think so. When I had my studios again, which I only sold last year, so it's quite a recent thing, a recent phenomenon. I started it 13 years ago, and the difference between technology use of 13 years ago and now is huge. So I'd say anyone in their 40s and 50s, they're really good at being able to kind of step into busyness and then come away from it, because they didn't grow up with technology.
Mm.
Anyone younger, oh my gosh, they were the twitchiest. My 30-year-olds, really twitchy on the mat, really could not relax. As soon as they'd come out, they'd be straight on their phones again. And in fact, I had a rule in my studio of like, you can't, I mean, why would you bring your phone into your classroom? But so many people did, and I'd be like, come on, it's an hour. You can exist without your phone here. So actually, I feel that the 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds have really got to um, create some very good boundaries around their technology use, and get a watch for time telling. Keep it at home. Go for a walk without it. I think the attack on our attention
Mm.
is huge and must be taken seriously. I read a stat that our brains are bombarded with 34 gigabytes of information every day. And if you left a laptop running with that information, being bombarded at it, it would burn out in a week. So that is the very first thing we must tend to, is kind of our attention. So I see people not sleeping very often, because of course, how are they going to sleep if they're so wound up and they're so kind of wired and tired in the day? Because their chilling out times are Netflix, or so it's still bombardment of information. And there's a really lovely, well, there's several techniques that I teach people to do during the day or after they finish their working day. And it is to leave your technology at home and then go into a park or somewhere where you'll feel quite safe. So, not just walking the streets, because when you're walking the streets, you are still on alert. You're looking at the traffic and you're trying not to bump into people. But when you're in a place where there's lots of greenery, you start to zone into what I call soft fascination, of where you can look at things and let them silently kind of, you observe them and let them silently kind of absorb into your system, without being on alert, without kind of thinking, what do I not need to bump into? So you can be in this really beautiful mental state that allows you to slowly let your day go and kind of feeds you with some nourishment. So that would be the very first thing that I would do to kind of get rid of this kind of constant attention, your attention being pulled in all directions. And nourishment, actually. So I see that. I think, I see people not really eating very well, having protein to feed their brains, or having, white carbs is a huge thing. And I get it. It's easy. It's so easy. I've just put my, don't tell him, but I'm telling this to you, but I put my husband on this. I was just, because we were both working from home, I was kind of watching him, and we eat very healthily. But I just saw that every single meal of his had bread in it. And it's healthy bread, it's sourdough and la la la.
Yeah.
And I was just like, let's just change that up. So we're doing a whole month of where there's no none of that at all. And it's just proteins and it's complex carbs, you know, so lots of vegetables of lots of different colors, and he's sleeping better. And so it's actually all down to habit again, you know, noticing what you do. And it's, you know what, it's fine to pick a pastry up, totally fine. But know that you want to do that and you really want to have it, rather than just mindlessly, I've hit a slump at 3 p.m, I need sugar, because that's not really going to revive you. So I think all those things, your attention, number one, you know, curb your use of technology, make sure you're kind of feeding your brain, resting your brain actually. So resting your brain with this lovely soft fascination in green spaces. Number two is better sleep. That will lead to better sleep. And number three is just eating, being very mindful of what you eat and making sure there's lots of nourishment there, because your food, you know, food makes your body. So, and it makes the quality of your thinking and so on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's it. That's spot on, right? Those are the big ones. I saw The Social Dilemma this past weekend.
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, I hope that in itself is also a real reality check for people, but it really speaks about what, you know, what information is doing to us. And I think about what is happening even to our neurochemistry with the extent of, you know, how we're engaging with social media. And so, yeah, I think spot on. I think that that is one of our challenges. And I hope that changes too, you know, coming out of this time for us as well. And Nahid, I know we are getting close up to close
Okay.
up to sort of wrapping up. We've had such an
Yeah.
incredible discussion, but I think maybe, you know, one of the questions that I do want to leave people with is what, you know, what can we do? And the hacks for work were fantastic, and I love that. But is there anything else we should be aware of in how we move our bodies or are just present in our bodies in a day? Something we should, if not change, simply be aware of with our physical bodies?
Yeah. There's lots of things. And I think the very first thing that I teach, so I teach a whole range of populations from athletes to people with Parkinson's. And the very first thing that I teach everybody is this optimal pace of breath. It's called 6x6 breath. So may I teach it to you?
Would love that. Would love
Yeah.
that.
So the idea is, so let me explain it first. So the idea is that you are breathing in and out through your nose. Mouth breathing is linked to shorter life. So breathing in and out through your nose is quite important because you're using more of your lung tissue. Yeah. And you're breathing in and out through your nose. As you breathe in, you let your belly rise. And as you breathe in, out, you let your belly fall. But it's really soft. You're not using external muscle to do it. So come to sit up on your sit bones, please. So when you sit up on your sit bones, your pelvis rolls forwards, your pubic bone rolls down, and then you can easily find posture. Yes? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
the pelvis is slightly rolled forwards, and then all the natural curves in your spine are present, and that effortlessly lifts up your head. You can close your eyes, and then I'm going to play something that might help. So you're going to hear this noise. Can you hear this noise?
Yes.
Yes, lovely. Okay, any minute now, you're going to start to exhale now. And then you're going to inhale. And exhale. Inhale, let the belly rise. Exhale, let the belly fall. Inhale, let the belly rise. Exhale, let the belly fall. Inhale, let the belly rise. Exhale, let the belly fall. I'm going to leave you to follow that by yourself, and just a few more words on this. Let your breath be really easy, so you find that easy pace. So you're not stopping and starting breath. You're just following the change of tone. And when you inhale all the way up until it changes tone. And then you exhale all the way down. So it's like turning the volume up on something very, very gently, and then gently dimming it, like those lovely dimmer switches that you get on lights. So it's very smooth and it's very easy. And anytime you feel like you're losing it, just find the change of tone again to find your breath. And what this breath does, it's equal on the inhale as it is on the exhale. And that brings your nervous system to balance. If you can build yourself up using this breath for up to about 20 minutes a day, and I started with about 2 minutes a day, you'll notice really quite profound changes in your reactivity. This breath is used for people who suffer from PTSD. They use it in disaster areas. It rapidly brings you back to a place of balance. So it mitigates the effects of stress quite quickly, of trauma quite quickly. It's been used in quite a lot of clinical trials. And this is the very first thing that I will do with everyone, because we are all over breathing. What this does is it reduces your breaths per minute down to 6. And just to give you context of that, in the UK, we're breathing about 12 to 18 breaths per minute. And in the US, it's about 22 breaths per minute. When you breathe really fast, you're actually training yourself into a state of panic, of stress. And this very, very simple breath work will bring you back to balance. And then slowly open your eyes. I'm just going to turn that down. How was that?
Incredible.
And it's free and it's easy. So there's a great app. It's not mine. It's called the Breathing app that you can download for free. And I recommend everybody doing it, because that is that your breath is like a remote control to your brain. And once you can get your nervous system into balance, everything starts to get into balance. And that breath, you know, over time when you practice it, it brings the rhythms of your heart, your lungs, and your brain back in line. So everything syncs up. And from there, that's a place to thrive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell how my energy has shifted.
Completely. I think you need a nice lie down now. And if you're thinking of children, actually, a good little tip is they need to be on a 3x3 breath, because their lungs are smaller. But if you get that up, you can set it to 6x6 or 3x3. So that is my gift to you and to all of your listeners, because it's a great one. It's a very, very, very profound, you know, pace of breathing.
Yeah, no, that was phenomenal. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Right.
Still kind of on the high of that. I think wrapping us up then with just kind of the final question to you is anything you want to share, any final thoughts, you know, to the listeners. But if you can throw in there and tell us a little bit about the Human Method holidays, because that looks amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So I teach online now. I'm completely online. All my one-to-one clients came online, and it's great because I've got people in their 70s and 80s who don't go anywhere near technology, and they're such whizzes now, so it's brilliant. So they're feeling really empowered being able to do that. And actually it suits everyone quite well to be taught in their own homes. Lots of my work involves lots of props, so that I kind of facilitate better breath by kind of opening up different areas of the body, and cushions, and then, you know, you just have more stuff than you normally would in a studio. And the holidays, I guess, are an extension of being in these cocoon spaces where people aren't running off to get stressed. And so you can get much deeper in. So I take people away for a week. So we've got holidays next year in Portugal, and it's on a farm in Portugal. There's a fresh lake on the ground, so we can go for swims. And it's about 5.5 hours of movement and focus and attention and breathing every day. So the mornings, everything builds up very slowly. All my classes build up quite slowly. And you build up over the week as well. So by the end of it, it feels like someone has literally oiled every single one of your joints. And you feel so completely human after that. And normally when people come away on my holidays, they come back and they change something quite big in their lives. So it has the ability to facilitate change. So that's next year, because everything this year went a little bit kaput. And then I do weekends in the UK. So a long weekend from a Friday to a Sunday. And again, it's quite intense, but glorious food. You don't have to think about cooking or washing up or anything. You literally, you breathe, you move, you get completely taken care of, and then all you have to do is go to bed. So it's rather nice. I kind of always wish that I could go on one of my holidays. Is that terrible of me to say that?
No, it sounds so decadent that, yeah, it sounds amazing.
It is. It's absolutely delicious. I don't mind not going back to my weekly classes at all because I'm loving being online. It has such a great connection. All my classes are live, so I'm able to talk to everyone. But actually, to gather is delicious, isn't it? So just to be able to have people for a week is just so precious. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to do that again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, if people do want to join online classes, they can, right? They can get the information from your
Yeah,
website.
yeah. On my website, all the classes are listed. And yeah, and DM me or email me if there's any questions. But they're all listed, and I also teach a lot of one-to-ones. And the one-to-ones will range from people who just are looking for better technique to very specific issues, from better sleep, or they might be recovering from injury or illness or something like that. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Well, we'll link all of that information. Nahid, it
Thank
was such a pleasure to have
you.
this conversation, to
Such
meet
a
you.
pleasure. Yeah, you too as well, Raki. And isn't it, the good things coming out of all of this are the connections that, we've made all around the world. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for asking me, because this becomes possible. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for just, I think, everything you shared today and just your presence and that really, really powerful breathing exercise. I think people could literally, you'll hear the energy shifts. So I hope it's an example for people as well and just how simple it can be. So
Absolutely.
Nahid, thank you so, so much. To everybody listening, I will link all of Nahid's details so you can look into it and, join online classes if that works for you. But thank you for being here.
Love to you and all of your listeners, and stay well, everyone.
Bye for now.